Sup, nerds? It's James, and I'm here with.
Jimmy.
And on Nerd Alert today, I just wanted to say congratulations to Zelda for finally getting her first playable appearance in a game series named after her. No, the CDI game does not count. Whoever says that, you can shut up. Anyways, The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom dropped this week. And oh my god, Zelda is finally playable in a mainline game. It's only taken us 30 some odd years to get here, but
Talking about, I played Sheik. Ha
God, he got me. He got me. But holy crap, almost 30 years to get Zelda her first playable appearance in a Zelda game. And all I have to say is, fucking finally, guys, it took you long enough.
I'm pretty excited about this. As the old man, I don't necessarily see all the news coming out, so I get my news from James. And he was telling me a little bit about this game and the scope of the game and how it's bigger than what we've seen before in the Legend of Zelda world. I'm stoked. My first NES, my father bought Legend of Zelda, a single-player game. And he sat down and he played it. So I had to sit there and watch. And finally, when it was my turn, I don't know how many hours I sat in front of the TV. I remember several times getting up, my leg was asleep. But that's just so amazing. And it's one of those franchises that has kept it fresh so many times over the years. So basically, any new iteration that comes out, I'm excited to at least give it a try. So I'm really excited for this one.
Absolutely. And I also wanted to use this as an opportunity to finally welcome Zelda to the Hall of Female Video Game Protagonists who were playable in the series. And of course, we got to go down.
You were saying before we started this, the first one. Go ahead. Who's it? Let's give it over to the first.
I really don't want to answer this, but I know I have to. The first female protagonist in a video game was Samus Aran from Metroid. Oh, God.
You forgot Miss Pac-Man. What is wrong
Shit,
with
you're right, Miss Pac-Man. No.
Now, I'll be honest. I cheated because I was like, well, I don't want to miss anybody. So I did a Google search on it. And she was 1982, one of the first to pop up. I'm like, oh, I can't wait for James to say Samus because I know it's one of his favorite characters. Miss Pac-Man, my friend.
He got me there. All right, I apologize. Miss Pac-Man was the first female, the lead protagonist in their home video game. And then not soon after, you had Samus Aran in Metroid. And there was a decent gap. There were probably a few sprinkled in there that we aren't privy to.
Let's take a pause on Samus because that was, again, I remember playing when it came out on NES. When you get to the end, and we didn't have the internet like we do, where it's like, oh my God, spoiler alert. Like, no, unless one of your friends finished it, you didn't know that. So when you get to the end and you're like, I did not see that coming. It was an awesome shock. I am sure now that I'm an adult and see how sexism is rampant, that there were probably people like, this is bullshit. How could they do that? But at the time it was like, that's awesome.
So yes, awesome. It's an unfortunate story, but I love to tell it. The original concept for Samus being a woman was just somebody saying, well, what if the player was revealed to be a girl? And it's like, there was no depth behind it, but I love how now Samus has become such an icon because people were like, no, let's take this concept and run with it. It started as a let's just blow players' minds to, we've created one of the most complex video game characters of all time. Hell yeah.
Well, it wasn't unprecedented because it mirrors Ridley Scott's Alien in that Ripley is the main character that kicks ass and survives. So even if it wasn't a happy accident, it still had basis in something that had happened. So it was very, very cool. What are some other big ones we have?
Now, this one's a little out of the way. This is for you Final Fantasy fans. I'm one too. The next big female lead would be Tara Branford from Final Fantasy VI. And many would argue she's not the main character because there's like 6 different main characters. Shut up. Sorry, I left at my own bad joke. Tara Branford is definitely the main character of Final Fantasy VI because she's the character who has the most focus. She was definitely one of the first, like, deeply complex female leads in a video game because her story is so harrowing and beautiful that it's like, I can't think of another female lead who has been through the shit she has been through and come out of it as like one of the most badass female leads ever. Because if you have played Final Fantasy VI, I won't spoil it. She goes through some stuff, and her character arc is like, it saddens me that she is not more well known as a strong female lead because her story is so beautiful.
My only issue with Final Fantasy and that franchise is it literally says final and it won't stop. It keeps coming out. End already. But if you've watched our video together, you already know that I hate Final Fantasy and James loves Final Fantasy and keeps trying to get me to play it. I already said I played it back when it first came out. I hated it. I don't want to do it again. I'm done with the cutscenes. Hey, James, what's the next?
Anyways, so the next big female lead, I don't remember the exact, but it's they were the same era. You've got Lara Croft and Jill Valentine.
I remember Lara Croft coming out first.
Okay.
But she also came out and just exploded in popularity. I mean, it's literally the female Indiana Jones. And it's like her playability. And it's funny, if you go back and look at the graphics now, you're like, wow. Because we've had movies and we've had obviously more realistic. So I was like, wow, okay, that's not attractive at all. But her character and the fact that we knew she was a female, we were playing as a female, you selected a female, that was pretty awesome back then with that ability, especially as we talk about representation. Like, you didn't see this a lot. And I honestly don't know the history of the production of the game, but you wanted more females to be in playing video games. So that's what they did. They created a character where females could play.
And Capcom, on the other end of the spectrum, made Resident Evil 2. Or was it the first one that had Jill? Which one had Jill? The first one had Jill. Well,
because PlayStation, PS1, you were presented Resident Evil, you play it, and you got to pick. You got to play Chris or Jill.
That's right. And
I love the game so much, I played them both. Jill was phenomenal. It wasn't like you got to do terribly different things. I think one got to carry more items, and I don't remember what the other one got to do. But I will still never forget that opening intro. This is probably the only time I will promote a cutscene, James. Jill coming in, you go in the door, you got your gun, and you come around the corner, and you immediately go to a cutscene. So you have zero control. And you have this zombie down the floor chewing on somebody, just looking up at you. And gets up, and you're like, oh, and you're trying to get control, and you can't. So you're trying to shoot, and you get it at the last minute. Oh, yeah, man. Heart was going crazy. But her character throughout was phenomenal. Obviously, it led to the movies being the major female lead role. But it was very cool at the time to be able to choose, do you want to be the dude, or do you want to be the guy or the girl? And it was cool that you got to have that choice.
Yes, and having her come back in Resident Evil 3 as an absolute kick-ass is awesome. My favorite thing, I believe that's where, no, Nemesis, I think, was 2. I can't remember. It's one of the big burly zombie dudes that shows up. My absolute favorite is watching people just beat the shit out of them as Jill, because it's like, yeah, do that. Destroy the hierarchy. And it's
truly is a badass.
Absolutely. Like, she gives no fucks, and it is just such good character writing too. Like, you don't even need to have character writing, and she's such a badass.
Agreed. So what's next?
I believe we're moving into the modern era, and there's a few, but the big one everybody points to is Ellie from Last of Us.
This is a unique one for me. I hate the video game. Hate it. I played maybe 30 minutes into it and was like, I'm done. I just can't. My heart is not into this. And it had everything to do with a father lost his daughter. And I couldn't. It was too realistic. The TV show came out, and I said the same thing. I'm like, I'm not watching it. I don't want to do that. Like, the real world sucks enough. I don't need to watch a father lose his daughter because that's too close to home. I don't want to do that. My daughter did watch it, and then my wife watched it. I can't honestly remember. James saw it before me, but they all were like, you've got to see it. It's so amazing. Like, fine, I caved. The TV show is phenomenal, and I was able to separate myself, but maybe because it's interactive, I couldn't with the video game. Hate the video game, but I'm very happy that you have a very strong protagonist in Ellie. She is truly an amazing character. Again, mainly going from the TV show because I do not play the game, but I love that she's a very strong female character.
Very much so. She is the modern Samus, if you will, or the modern Lara Croft, whatever like major female protagonist you can think of for a generation of gamers. She is the modern version of that. And it is awesome to see more and more we are getting these incredible female leads in gaming, because that's what we need, really. I want to see more leads that aren't men or aren't the heteronormative example you can think of. I want to see these protagonists that are deep and complex and can be just whatever the hell. Give us these fascinating stories, because that's what video games are all about, living a life that isn't yours. And it's special to be able to play as a character that you are completely removed from in your demographic. And it's such a unique experience to play a game as a straight white dude, to play a game where you're not a straight white dude, because it's a chance to be somebody else, to experience something else. And it's always so special. And now, finally, we can welcome the one, the only Zelda to the echelon of female video game leads.
And we are by no means saying that this list is all inclusive. We would love to hear what you guys have to think as far as strong female lead in video games. And notice the distinction, because we know Princess Peach has always been around. We know Princess Zelda has always been around, but we're talking about as the main character protagonist that leads the way, that you can play, that sort of thing. Not somebody that is in the background. Like I joked with James earlier about Sheik. Yes, but she wasn't the main character.
So, if you haven't gotten the chance, pick up The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom. It's going to be a fun ride. And tell us about your favorite video game female protagonist leads in the comments down below. This has been James with Nerd Alert. Peace out.